So my name's Chris Paul. I'm the CEO of Hercules Silver, and living in the news was curious about how I got involved here. What was it that led me to Cambridge, Idaho, and to make this copper discovery, and how it all came together. So, essentially, what I'm here to talk about today is just a little bit about my background in geology and mining exploration, and kind of what led me down the path to get to where I'm at today. So, when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And, I went to university right away, right off the bat, and I spent a couple of years doing sort of general sciences at the University of Victoria, British Columbia. But, it wasn't for me. I didn't really have a clear direction in life. And so, I dropped out after a couple of years, and I just made the decision to go traveling. And I traveled the world. I went to Australia. I went to the Philippines, and I met a lot of really interesting people. And it just so happened that during those travels, I met people that were involved in mineral exploration. And I didn't have any exposure to mining. I didn't have any exposure to geology growing up. My parents weren't in the mining industry, but meeting these people and sort of seeing what they do, I think was what initially planted the seed in my mind that this was something that was really interesting. And as a kid that maybe doesn't really know where he's going in life, that just seemed like a potentially interesting pathway. But ultimately, it wouldn't be for another few years before that really came back into my life, because I continued to travel and sort of working in factory jobs and this and that. But the traveling came to an end, and eventually I came home. Returned to my home in Vancouver, British Columbia. My father just passed away, so there was no, I pretty much had to get cracking in terms of work and making money and actually supporting my mom, who was hurt pretty hard financially when my dad passed away. And so I found a job that was paying reasonably well at a marina in West Vancouver, where we were doing fiberglass repair on rich people's boats. And it paid well, the job paid well, but after doing that for about a year and a half, you realize that it's not for you. This is not the long-term solution. And so I started searching around online for thinking back to these people I met in mineral exploration, these geologists, and how can I get into that? How can I do this really interesting job where I wake up every day and I'm excited to go to work? And so I found a program in BC called, it was the Mining and Mineral Exploration Program at BCIT, and was able to enroll in that. And it was about 2 years of schooling where they teach you a little bit of everything. So you get exposure to everything from mining to metallurgy to engineering, geology, economics. I mean, just you name it. It's like pedal to the metal, 8 courses a semester for 2 years straight. And so I graduated that in 2010, which was fortunate because the gold price was really taking off at that time, and there was a lot of jobs. And so I was able to get a job up in the Yukon territories, up in the far north, working for a prospector who'd just become very famous. His name was Sean Ryan, and Sean had me basically taking soil samples and staking claims for him. But it was so fun. I think I was 23 years old at the time, or 24 years old. And so, we were getting paid $200 a day to get flown around in helicopters, in the remote wilderness. You get dropped off in a fly camp. You get to camp with young people who you're, friends with. And I just thought that this was it. I basically, hit the jackpot with this job. And so, I was able to continue doing that for quite a period and work my way up until about 2013, when all of a sudden, the gold price wasn't doing so hot anymore, and the whole metals and mining industry took a really sharp downturn. And I basically, everyone at the company got laid off. But I knew from doing that work for a couple of years that the part of this business that I liked the most because there's a lot of different ways you can go in the mining industry, but the part that I really enjoyed the most was mineral exploration. So in other words, not actually producing, not actually the ones out digging the holes in the ground and mining the materials, but the ones out looking. So the treasure hunters, the geologists, the people who study the science and of ore deposits and how they form in the Earth's crust and the patterns that you look for and how you search for these things. That to me was very captivating. And so I basically then went back to school for a second time. I went to Simon Fraser University and I enrolled in geology. So now I'm going for a degree, and so I think it took me another 2-3 years. And then I was able to actually graduate with a geology degree. Now, while I was in school, I met a friend who was more of a corporate guy. So he was taking geology school, but he was more of a businessman, and he would get public companies listed. So he was someone called a shell builder. And so shell builders get companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. They're shell companies because basically they don't have anything in them. They're public, but they just might have a little bit of cash in them, and they're looking for something to do. They're looking for maybe a mining project that might be interesting and might become the focus of that company. And so him and I ended up, basically sort of working that business for a little bit. And what we did is we found a sort of niche business model where we'd get these companies listed on the stock exchange. We would have to do a certain amount of work for them, and long story short, that led into us forming a services business, so a geological consulting company, we basically did all this work in British Columbia, all over BC, consulting for various different companies. We had our own company called Golden Ridge Resources, and then in 2020 we sold this services company to another company. And we sort of parted ways. He went to Newfoundland, and I actually came down to Idaho. So I was looking for a change of scenery. British Columbia's a lot of mineral prospectivity, but it's also somewhere that everything's kind of been staked up. It's very busy. There's lots of people there. It's very crowded. Whereas Idaho, to me, sort of represented more of an opportunity, because there's not much mineral exploration here. So you have a tremendous amount of exploration happening in Nevada. You have a tremendous amount happening in British Columbia, Arizona, all around you. So the geology's good, but for some reason there's no one here. And so I sort of sunk my teeth into Idaho, a few gold projects down here. Ended up meeting a claim staker who knew of this thing called the Hercules in Cambridge, Idaho. Now, this was an old silver project. It had hundreds of holes drilled on it back in the 60s through the 80s. But when silver prices fell apart, so did the company. And basically they gave up when the silver price crashed in the early 80s. And so I looked at this thing. I thought, this is a really interesting project that I think has just been orphaned. It's just been forgotten about. I think it needs another look with modern technology, and we know so much more now. We have so many more tools and technology at our disposal now. And so basically was able to use one of these shell companies that was looking for a project, and we had the right project for it. And so we sort of merged these two things together. I was asked to be the CEO, which is a brand new thing for me. I mean, I'm normally the geologist in the back room, making the maps or out in the field banging on rocks. But, I was sort of asked by the shareholders of this company, you brought the project to us, why don't you give it a shot at running it? And so I sort of, I was hesitant, but I agreed to do it. I thought, why not give it a shot? It's a small company. It's just a penny stock. How hard can it be? And so that was in the beginning of 2021. And so, of course, we set out and we started doing the same exploration we would have done anywhere else. We did the soil sampling, the mapping, the geophysics. And of course, I think a lot of people know the story with the discovery. it was this special geophysical survey that we did where we ran current down through the Earth's crust and in sort of a metal detector type fashion, it lit up and it lit up with something that was really quite deep, deeper than any of the drilling that was done in the 60s through to the 80s. And so when we came out to finally do the first drill program here last year in 2023, we decided to investigate what this anomaly was. And we drilled the first deep hole. We made the discovery. And, it was like the shot that was heard around the world. We put that news out October of 2023. And, it was 185 meters of almost 1% copper, which is remarkable. It's a remarkable discovery, and it's a special type of discovery, called a porphyry copper deposit, which most places in the world, porphyry copper belts, they've all been found. They've all been found. Just to find something new, a new porphyry copper discovery in a part of the world in western Idaho where they're not supposed to exist, the dogma, the known geology, they're not supposed to be out here. I mean, it really, it made some waves. It made some waves. And so, Barrick ultimately made the investment that they did. They made a really big investment for 15% of our company. We partnered up with them, and for the last year, we've been following up on that discovery, doing more drilling. We've got a great team we've put together here of really good, local people helping us out, and we hope that we can continue to add on to the success of that discovery we made, and hopefully in 5 or 6 or 7 years, maybe we have something economic on our hands here. But yeah, that's the story, and I hope you liked it.